Imagine walking through the heart of ancient Athens. You step into the Acropolis, fully expecting to see those pristine, blindingly white marble statues that, we've all seen in modern museums.
Right, the ultimate peak of classical elegance.
Exactly. But instead, you look up and you see a statue of a goddess just staring down at you. And her lips are painted this stark black. Her skin is tinted, and her hair is painted a vivid, glaring blood red.
It is quite a shock.
It really is. I mean, everything you think you know about the aesthetic of ancient Greece is basically a lie, starting with the color of their hair.
Yeah, it completely shatters that idealized monochrome image we all have. We tend to view ancient aesthetics as just simple matters of fashion, right? Subjective beauty.
Yeah.
But in the ancient Mediterranean world, a single physical trait, like hair color, functioned as a literal cosmic boundary marker. It dictated your moral standing, your social utility, and honestly, your entire place in the universe.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking you on a massive chronological journey. We're going to start high up in the radiant sunlit heights of surface divinity on Mount Olympus.
The fun stuff.
Right. And from there, we'll move down into the messy earthly realm of human social order on the streets of Athens. And finally, we are going to plunge deep into the fiery subterranean chaos of Tartarus.
The stack of sources we're synthesizing today is incredibly rich. We're pulling from deep historical analyses, classical mythology texts, and some philosophical notes, including some really profound excerpts from a text called Aurora Green.
Yeah, that one is fascinating.
It really is. And all of these materials center on one incredibly powerful and deeply contradictory symbol in the ancient Greek world, the color red, and specifically red hair.
Okay, let's unpack this. How could a single physical trait simultaneously represent the absolute pinnacle of divine beauty on one hand, and then, the ultimate marker of dangerous barbaric chaos on the other?
To answer that, we really have to dismantle the massive misconception you brought up in the beginning, the myth of the white marble world.
Right, because for centuries, Renaissance scholars just championed this idea that Greek art was defined by pure, unpainted stone.
Exactly. But the reality was a technique called polychromy. Those temples and statues were saturated in vivid shades. We're talking blue, gold, green, and these intensely warm reds.
So wait, why did we spend hundreds of years thinking they were white? Did the Renaissance artists just, ignore the paint?
Well, they literally didn't see the paint. Over centuries of burial and intense weathering in the Mediterranean sun, the organic pigments faded, or they just washed away entirely.
Oh, wow. So when they dug them up, the bare stone was all that was left.
Right. European scholars mistakenly assumed this monochrome look was a deliberate choice representing pure, rational restraint. But modern archaeology, using ultraviolet light and microscopic analysis, has totally proven that the ancient world was a riot of color.
Like the Peplos Kore.
Yes, the Peplos Kore is the perfect example from our sources.
I am familiar with that one. It's the famous statue of a young maiden from the Athenian Acropolis, right? Dating back to around 530 BCE.
That's the one.
So what did the microscopic analysis actually reveal about her?
It confirmed that her hair preserves actual traces of red pigment. The sculptors created this paint using red ochre or madder root. They deliberately added this color to the marble to give the stone warmth and lifelike vitality.
But the sources make it clear it was far more than just a decorative choice to look realistic, right?
Oh, absolutely. In the Greek world, reddish hair was a profound status symbol.
Was that simply because lighter hair colors were biologically rare in that specific geographic region? I mean, the Mediterranean?
Yeah, rarity was the foundation of it. Because lighter hair was uncommon there, it was elevated to something supernatural.
Makes sense.
When poets or sculptors depicted a figure with reddish-brown or golden-blonde tones, they were signaling nobility. They used a very specific linguistic term for this radiant golden-red spectrum. They called it xanthos.
Xanthos. Okay, so if we're reading early Greek literature, like Homer's epics, who actually gets described with this word? Are we talking exclusively about the gods here?
The gods, certainly, but also the most elite mortal heroes. Xanthos spanned from blonde to reddish golden and auburn. It was the ultimate standard for divine beauty.
And heroic merit, right?
Exactly. Aphrodite is often associated with these tones. Helen of Troy is described this way. And, crucially, King Menelaus.
Oh.
When Homer describes Menelaus with his xanthos hair, he is projecting the king's martial vigor, his royal authority, and his divine favor.
So xanthos acts like a glowing celebrity halo effect. It's the physical proof that you've been touched by the gods.
That is a great way to put it.
But our sources point out that the Greeks had another very different term for red hair, one that wasn't about a golden glow at all.
Right. As Greek traditions evolved, a secondary term became incredibly prominent, and that word was puros.
Puros.
And puros did not mean golden or radiant. It specifically meant flame-colored or fiery.
So if Xanthos is the glowing halo of divine favor, Puros sounds like the blinding, destructive flash of a literal explosion.
The distinction in the texts is palpable. While Xanthos emphasized the awe-inspiring beauty of the gods, Puros emphasized the volatility of an uncontrolled fire.
Wow.
It represented a consuming heat, fierce destructive intensity, and an inescapable martial destiny. And you see this duality perfectly captured in the myths surrounding the ultimate Greek warrior, Achilles.
Wait, how does the Puros concept show up in the Achilles mythology? Because I know he's usually described as having that beautiful golden Xanthos hair.
The later myths play with this intensely. Before the Trojan War, Achilles famously disguised himself as a young maiden to avoid the draft, so to speak.
Oh, right, he hid on the island of Skyros.
Exactly. And the alias he chose while in hiding was Pyrrha, which literally translates to the flame-colored girl. Even in disguise, his fundamental nature could not be hidden. Later on, his son takes the name Pyrrhus, meaning the red-haired.
So the name itself functions as a hereditary warning label. It signals to everyone that this bloodline carries a terrifying, unstoppable warrior energy.
Exactly.
But this brings up something I really want to push back on. If a hero like Achilles embodies both Xanthos, meaning he's beautiful and divinely favored, and Puros, meaning he's a destructive, volatile explosion, doesn't that make the Greek ideal of a hero inherently unstable?
Oh, completely.
Are they basically worshiping a ticking time bomb?
They absolutely are. The Greek hero is fundamentally dangerous. The myths acknowledge that. The gods and these semi-divine heroes could handle that fiery instability because they operated on a massive cosmic scale.
Right.
The contradiction of being beautifully radiant but violently destructive was the core of their power. They were forces of nature. But for ordinary mortals, that kind of fiery intensity was not divine.
Okay, so a fiery hero like Achilles gets a pass because he is fighting mythical wars. But what happens when an ordinary mortal guy with that same fiery red hair walks into the Athenian marketplace?
Oh, the reaction was incredibly hostile.
Really? Did regular people not revere him as a god?
Not at all. When we move down from the sunlit heights of myth to the earthly society of everyday Athens, the narrative around red hair completely flips. It goes from being a mark of divine favor to serving as a tool for brutal political propaganda.
Wow.
And to understand how they justified this prejudice, we have to look at how ancient intellectuals understood biology. They relied on a concept called climate theory.
Wait, climate theory. When we talk about climate science today, we're talking about carbon emissions and weather patterns.
Yeah.
How did ancient Greek intellectuals, like the historian Herodotus, view climate theory?
They viewed it through the lens of strict environmental determinism. They operated on early medical philosophies, similar to humoral theory.
Like the four humors, blood, bile, that sort of thing?
Exactly. They genuinely believed that the physical environment a population lived in directly dictated their internal biology and, consequently, their moral temperament.
Okay, so what was the biological mechanism they imagined? How did the weather change someone's soul?
They looked at the cold, harsh environments of the north, the territories outside of Greece where the Thracian and Scythian tribes lived. The Greek intellectuals theorized that freezing temperatures literally condensed the blood.
Condensed the blood.
Yeah. They believed this cold trapped the body's natural heat deep inside the core, causing these northern people to biologically boil over with rage and impulsivity.
Let me get this straight. Because red or lighter hair was much more common in those northern regions, the Greeks decided that red hair was the visible symptom of a biologically hot-blooded, aggressive temperament.
That's exactly it.
It basically became a symbolic shorthand for being an unruly barbarian.
It provided them with visible proof that these outsiders were closer to wild animals than to the civilized, cultivated citizens of the Greek polis. And the philosophers formalized this prejudice into a framework known as physiognomy.
Oh, I have read about this in the sources. The Aristotelian and Peripatetic schools from the 5th and 4th centuries BCE really championed this.
They really did.
And it is incredibly dark, because they were attempting to judge invisible qualities of a person's soul simply by measuring their physical traits.
Physiognomy was a systematic attempt to categorize moral character. One of their most utilized methods was direct animal comparison.
How so?
Well, if an individual had red hair, these philosophical texts would instruct you to liken them to a fox, which represented deceit and cunning, or a lion, which represented unbridled aggression. The texts explicitly linked physical redness to emotional excess, a lack of self-control, and fundamental instability.
I mean, that is incredibly convenient for the Athenians. It gives a complete veneer of scientific objectivity to their cultural xenophobia.
Exactly.
They don't have to admit they're just biased against foreigners. They can just throw up their hands and say, look, the science of physiognomy says you are naturally prone to lawlessness. We're just following the biology.
It functioned as brilliant social propaganda. It masked their economic anxieties and the judgments against outsiders by framing those judgments as undeniable objective observations of human nature. They built a society that demanded a clear dividing line between the rational Greek citizen and the emotional, fiery barbarian.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because I am genuinely baffled by the sources here. We have this situation where the Athenians are writing all of these philosophical treatises about how red-haired northerners, specifically these Scythians and Thracians, are impulsive, dangerous, lawless barbarians.
Right.
If they believe that so deeply, why on earth did the Athenian government hire the Scythians to be their public police force? They literally handed them weapons and authority over the city.
I know, it seems like a massive contradiction, doesn't it? Bringing the people you fear most into the heart of your city to maintain order.
It sounds insane.
But it actually makes perfect sense when you examine the mechanics of social control. The Athenians specifically required a police force that was culturally, linguistically, and physically distinct from the citizens they were monitoring.
Okay, let me see if I can map this out. It sounds like buying a wild, aggressive wolf to guard your house specifically because it's wild and terrifying.
Yes.
You keep the wolf on a very tight leash, and you use its intimidating presence to create a deliberate psychological barrier between your safe, civilized family inside the house and the untamed world outside.
That analogy holds up beautifully, especially when you consider how modern societies often design the aesthetics of riot police or specialized military units to look intimidating and deliberately othered from the general public.
That's a great point.
The Athenians took this striking physical difference, the red hair, the foreign clothing, and the cultural stereotype of the aggressive northerner, and turned it into a functional tool of intimidation.
So when an Athenian citizen walked through the Agora and saw these Scythian archers patrolling, that distinct appearance constantly reinforced the social boundary.
Exactly.
It was a daily visual reminder, like, we are the rational, civilized ones who belong here, and they are the untamed enforcement who do not.
It preserved the entire social hierarchy. The Athenian identity relied entirely on having this fiery, untamed outsider to compare themselves against.
So they needed this physical outsider to define their own civilized identity on a daily basis. But did this fear of the fiery, untamed other stop at the city gates? Or did it bleed into their religion too?
Oh, it bled into everything.
Did they project this exact same fear downward, past the surface of the earth?
It saturated their entire cosmology. And that takes us to the final, deepest stage of our journey today, the descent into Tartarus.
Tartarus. I feel like whenever we hear that word today, we immediately translate it to hell. We picture a massive fiery furnace full of demons.
Right, that's the popular image.
But our sources, specifically Hesiod's Theogony, show that Tartarus did not start out as a fire pit at all.
Not at all. Originally, Tartarus was defined by its absolute void and isolation.
Like just emptiness.
Yes. Hesiod describes it as a suffocating realm of absolute darkness, wrapped in a triple layer of night and surrounded by impenetrable bronze walls.
Wow.
It was a vast cosmic abyss buried so far beneath the ordinary underworld that an anvil dropped from the earth would fall for 9 days and nights before hitting the bottom.
It was essentially a maximum security cosmic quarantine zone.
Precisely. It served as the final dumping ground for the defeated Titans and any primordial, chaotic forces that threatened the structured, rational divine order of the Olympian gods. Tartarus was the absolute deepest boundary between civilization and cosmic disorder.
Right.
But the texts reveal that Tartarus was not just a passive, empty prison. It was described as a fertile womb of chaos.
Right, because Gaia, the earth itself, actually unites with the dark abyss of Tartarus to produce something horrific. They give birth to monsters.
Yes, they do.
And the most terrifying of these was Typhon. What made Typhon so different from the Titans who were already down there?
Typhon is the catalyst where the imagery of the underworld violently shifts. He is described in the text as a massive monster with 100 dragon heads roaring with the sounds of wild beasts.
Terrifying.
And crucially, his eyes are described as blazing with blood-red fire. Typhon embodied volcanic fury, hurricane storms, and the completely destructive power of raw nature.
And then Zeus has to fight him, right?
Exactly. After an apocalyptic battle, Zeus defeats Typhon and hurls him straight back down into Tartarus.
And this event is what triggers the Greeks to start linking the deepest parts of the underworld to volcanic eruptions and boiling heat.
Yes.
They genuinely believed that Typhon's boiling blood and his fiery breath were trapped beneath the earth, causing actual volcanoes to erupt on the surface.
His imprisonment changes the physical makeup of the subterranean world, and this introduces a crucial linguistic and symbolic concept in the ancient Greek worldview, a term called erythros.
Erythros. Now, this is the broader Greek term for redness, right?
Okay.
Separate from the golden xanthos or the flickering puros.
Correct.
What kind of weight did erythros carry?
Erythros carried massive, heavy symbolic weight. It represented literal blood, intense heat, raw natural force, and brutal war.
So it was much darker.
Much darker. It was the color deeply associated with Ares, the god of war. It's the reason ancient astronomers called the planet Mars Pyrois, meaning the fiery one, linking its red glow directly to bloodshed and uncontrollable battle fury.
Our sources note that they mapped this erythros symbolism onto geography as well. Like the body of water we call the Red Sea or the Erythra Thalassa wasn't named just because of a literal color.
Not at all.
That name actually signaled to sailors that they were entering mysterious frontier regions, harsh climates, and immense foreign distance.
Exactly. Erythros became the universal language of danger and the extreme, untamed edges of reality. So when we look at how the mythology of Tartarus evolves over time, it becomes increasingly saturated with this specific Erythros imagery.
And the prime example of this evolution is the introduction of the river Phlegethon.
Right, yes, the famous river of fire.
How does the Phlegethon change the landscape of Tartarus?
The Phlegethon flowed through the very depths of Tartarus, but it contained no water. The texts describe it as a slow-moving, boiling stream of liquid rock and fire.
Sounds like literal lava.
It basically is. It glowed with immense heat and what the sources refer to as blood-like destruction. Most importantly, the Phlegethon served a new purpose. It was a primary instrument of divine punishment, designed to actively consume and torment the souls trapped within the void.
So the presence of the Phlegethon and the fiery blood of monsters like Typhon fundamentally rewrites the nature of this space.
Completely erase that.
Because of this overwhelming imagery of molten redness, Tartarus transforms from a dark, quiet, empty prison into a blazing, infernal realm of active eternal suffering.
Right.
Which, of course, creates the architectural blueprint for the Roman and Christian depictions of hell that follow centuries later.
It establishes the entire paradigm. The concept of an infernal afterlife is built entirely out of the ancient Greek symbolism of Erythros heat, blood, fire, and violent divine retribution.
There is such an incredible, deeply unsettling symmetry to this entire journey we've taken today.
Yes.
Think about it.
Let's hear it.
On the surface of the earth, in the streets of Athens, the Greeks took their earthly outsiders, the unruly red-haired Scythians and Thracians, and put them on the literal edges of their known world, or forced them into separate, marginalized social castes to act as frightening police.
Right.
And then, cosmically, they took their mythological outsiders, the Titans and Typhon, and locked them in Tartarus, the deepest, most distant frontier imaginable.
The symmetry is definitely there.
It makes me wonder if the Greeks invented the fiery version of hell simply because they were terrified of what happens when the natural forces of the earth, whether that's a volcano erupting or a foreigner refusing to assimilate, lose their civilized structure.
The parallel is profound. The Greeks essentially took every single element of existence that they could not rationally control. Unpredictable weather, violent emotional outbursts, foreign cultures, volcanic eruptions.
Also the scary stuff.
Yeah, all of it. And they painted it with the exact same brush of fiery redness and buried it as far away in their cosmology as they possibly could. Tartarus was a geographic and spiritual containment zone for their own societal anxieties.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this deep dive today? Why does a thorough breakdown of ancient Greek color symbolism actually matter in the modern world?
It's a fair question.
It matters because unpacking this history proves that categorizing people based on physical appearance is not some natural, inevitable human default. It is a highly constructed, deeply intentional historical process.
Absolutely.
When you see modern society stereotyping certain outsider identities or using physical aesthetics as a shorthand to judge someone's morality, their intelligence, or their temperament, you are not witnessing human biology at work. You are witnessing the direct echo of ancient Greek propaganda.
A very loud echo.
The Greeks built an elaborate pseudo-scientific system to justify who gets the privilege of being civilized and who gets slapped with the label of barbarian. And those exact same blueprints are still buried deep in the foundation of our culture today.
They really are. The machinery of prejudice hasn't changed, only the targets. And regarding how we build these boundaries, there is a lingering thought in our sources from the philosopher Xenophanes, who was writing around 500 BCE.
What did he say?
He made an incredibly astute observation about human nature. He noted that the Thracians, those northern red-haired outsiders we've been discussing, imagined their own gods with red hair and blue eyes.
Oh, wow.
Meanwhile, the Greeks imagined gods that looked exactly like themselves. We are all familiar with the concept that humanity creates its gods in its own image. But looking at the fiery depths of Tartarus and looking at the marginalized barbarians policing the streets of ancient Athens, a much darker question emerges.
What's that?
What does it say about us when we build our monsters and our absolute worst visions of hell entirely out of the traits of the people we fear?